45-year-old Chenery took up his Newcastle position just 2 years ago, but his association with the city has spanned many years. From 1981 to 1985, he was the Assistant General Manager of the Rod and Bar Products Division. He managed the Collieries Division for 2 years to 1987 and then spent 2 years in BHP's head office in Melbourne. His resignation is effective February 28 and comes after an approach from an unnamed US corporation. Mr. Chenery joined BHP as a trainee. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree with honours and a business degree from Harvard University. He was a member of the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Manufacturers and the Hunter Economic Development Council. His wife and 3 children will join him in the States in a few months' time. A replacement will be announced in days. BHP has a history of promoting its senior people from within the organisation.
Elamore Vale signwriter Gary Reynolds is painting a bright future for the Workers' Club. He has spent the past 3 weeks braving sun and showers to create these 200 shadow figures on the 180-metre long hoarding. Though the hoarding will last only as long as construction of the new club takes, it reflects a return to the good old days.
It just brightens the side up and gives a few jobs that a few things that they do at the Workers' Club, like playing pool and dancing and having fun generally.
But a shadow has fallen over the expected completion date. Work began last month when Governor-General Bill Hayden visited the site. It was hoped the club would reopen by Christmas. But now the $20 million complex will not display its extended facilities until April 1992 because of delays in preparation work, council approval and the traditional holiday shutdown. But work to stabilise and secure the perimeter of the site under the new earthquake building code has been completed. Work on the foundations will begin tomorrow.
Industrial sites can be dusty places. Boral Slag at Mayfield admits to problems in the past, including some residents' complaints. But the company has decided to water down the argument.
We don't want any problems, so we just put it in.
16 water nozzles like those on the local golf course have been strategically placed around the 4-hectare site. Now the 400 truck movements each day leave a little mud on the ground, but dust-free air.
There was no rest for the Knights today as they stretched the muscles made weary by last week's gruelling 24-0 win over Mount Isa.
It was very, very hot. It was stifling, you know, and it was a sort of heat we weren't used to, never experienced it before. And to come away with the points, it's pretty good.
Coach Alan McMahon knows his side will have to be fit and loose to compete with the young but talented Steelers unit.
The Illawarra is certainly a very quick side and very pacey. And it's on this Saturday at the Sports Centre. As you said, it will be a very trying game.
It was the debut session for former St George half Steve Linnane. The Knights' latest recruit is keen to impress, but not yet sure what role he'll play come Saturday.
Hopefully I'll just get a run and here and there and things might fall into place.
Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
In the pet world, this is public enemy number 1. It's the flea season and the hot humid weather has made breeding conditions ideal. Long grass and warm dusty areas are the perfect incubators for eggs, larvae, pupa and finally a healthy flea population. Distressed domestic pets are the first indicators that the plague has struck.
The saliva staining around the rear end, where the saliva stained the skin, where it's constantly nibbling. There's another dog there that has scurf in the coat, and the coat is thinned around the tail butt area.
If ignored, an infestation like this could kill a kitten. To protect animals up to 3 months old, a range of powders and collars is available. For older animals, soaks, powders, collars and sprays are recommended, but the battle doesn't end there.
Flea control involves treating the environment as well as the pet. Most people do something about the pet, but they forget about the environment.
The RSPCA advises pet owners to spray insecticides around animal sleeping areas. And if you feel Rover is due for a wash and powder, wait until he's dried off before applying a repellent.
The Newcastle Dramatic Art Club's production Curtain Call is 2 hours of musical theatre highlights dating back to 1960. It begins with songs from Hair to the more recent hits such as Big River, Les Miserables and the record-breaking Cats. From hippie to hip-hop, Curtain Call opens tomorrow at the Roxy in Hamilton and plays for 2 weeks.
A northbound lorry carrying a load of paint thinners and general freight overturned on a sharp bend just before 4 a.m.
Apparently a offside tyre, rear tyre, blew out and caused the vehicle to go onto its side.
The truck burst into flames, its driver escaping with minor injuries.
Some of the goods on the lorry was paint and thinners, and we believe that's sparked up and caused the fire. It was well alight when police arrived.
Fire crews swamped the wreck with foam to bring the blaze under control. The truck's load was destroyed. A single lane was open to edge traffic past the scene during a 7-hour clean-up and salvage operation. Traffic was also diverted from the area around the Lakes Way.
It's over 24 hours now since the first major ground battle of the war began. Batteries of US Marine howitzers have been pounding Iraqi positions inside Kuwait, forcing the enemy back onto the defensive. Tonight, Allied artillery is pinning down Iraqi troops still holed up in Al-Khafji. The bulk of the enemy heavy armour has retreated, but not without a fight. Out of sight across the desert no man's land, at least 24 Iraqi tanks and 13 armoured vehicles, which the Allies claim to have destroyed. The Marine gunners have reportedly inflicted heavy casualties on Saddam Hussein's ground troops, who move forward without any air cover.
John Toohey shudders when he sees the pictures from the Persian Gulf and realises that he was nearly a part of the horror and turmoil. Although he's safe and well at his Cooks Hill home, he's ever mindful of his last few days in the war zone. John was a nurse at a major Saudi Arabian hospital in Al-Bahar, near Riyadh. As the rest of the world waited and wondered in the countdown to the January 15 deadline, he and his colleagues were preparing for a war he says the Saudis always thought would come.
If there had been a chemical attack on our area, we were trained to dress up in chemical suits and gas masks and go out in the field, bring them back to a decontamination centre near the hospital and decontaminate them.
2 days before the deadline, an event John said heightened his fears that Al-Bahar could be in the firing line.
We had over 30 Iraqis come through our emergency room.
What were they there for?
Trying to get admitted to the hospital. With war pending, you know, all of a sudden all these fit young Iraqis start springing up everywhere. And it must have been a worry to the Saudi CID there that terrorism or something might happen if war broke out.
John decided then to get out. He booked a flight for just 7 hours' time. It was a 6-hour drive to the airport, and then the courier carrying his vital paperwork disappeared. Somehow John managed to get to the airport and made his flight with only minutes to spare. If you hadn't have made it, do you think you could have got out afterwards?
No, the exit visa was stamped for that day only.
John left behind several friends who can't leave now. Last night he spoke to 2 of them, a call that left him with an uneasy feeling.
They sounded calm, but then again our phone calls were always listened to.
So they would have had to be careful what they told you?
Yes. I asked Tony if they could still get out and if Jeddah Airport was still open to commercial traffic, and the phone just went dead.
Dozens of police swooped on the Hunter Street intersection late yesterday amid reports of a gunman opening fire on another motorist after allegedly running into the back of the vehicle at traffic lights. The terrified victim's four-wheel drive was riddled with bullet holes. There were no passengers. The driver, a 38-year-old woman from Newcastle, was treated for shock. Buildings around the scene were also hit, some rounds passing within metres of employees working inside. Police arrested a man minutes later at a service station in Mayfield, only a few kilometres away. 41-year-old Ian Shelley Fletcher, unemployed of Greeter, appeared in Newcastle local court this morning, charged with attempted murder and other firearm offences. Police tendered a lever-action .375 Magnum rifle allegedly used in the incident. Fletcher appeared agitated during his appearance and interjected on numerous occasions during the proceedings. At one stage, he was physically restrained by police officers as he attempted to stand. Fletcher will be sent to Long Bay Psychiatric Centre for assessment. He'll reappear for mention on February the 8th. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
A northbound lorry carrying a load of paint thinners and general freight overturned on a sharp bend just before 4 a.m.
Apparently a offside rear tyre blew out and caused the vehicle to go onto its side.
The driver's father was travelling ahead in another vehicle. He saw the crash and ran back to help his son and a female passenger kick out the windscreen of the cab and scramble free minutes before the truck burst into flames. The pair escaped with minor injuries.
Some of the goods on the lorry was paint and thinners, and we believe that's sparked up and caused the fire. It was well alight when police arrived.
Fire crews swamped the wreck with foam to bring the blaze under control. The truck's load was destroyed. A single lane was open to edge traffic past the scene during an 8-hour clean-up and salvage operation. Traffic was also diverted from the area around the Lakes and Buckets ways.
While it became compulsory for pushbike riders 16 years and over to wear helmets from January 1, police allowed time for cyclists to be educated. But from tomorrow, the honeymoon's over.
The police in their normal patrols will be pulling over cyclists, and they will be issuing infringement notices, which will be $32 fine.
Beat police were on the street today reminding riders of the law and some frightening statistics. In the last 2 years, 39 cyclists have been killed on the state's roads. 31 of those were not wearing helmets. It's estimated the new law will save $1 million in hospital and insurance bills. Riders under the age of 16 must be wearing a helmet by July 1.
And now we're looking at the adults setting the example for the children, and hopefully we'll have a greater percentage of voluntary usage by the time the 1st of July comes in, when the people under 16 must wear it.
The development is the latest phase in the club's 80-year evolution. It started off as a corrugated iron shed, home to the 16-foot skiffs. Walls and roof sheets blew off in southerly busters, high tides lapped the floorboards. The building and the boats have changed a lot since then, and club officials say that patrons now demand the latest in comfort and convenience. Existing games, poker machine and eating areas will be upgraded, but the centrepiece of the renovations will be a view deck to be built over the water. It will feature bar and bistro service under shade awnings. Work has begun on the decking that will rest on concrete pylons driven into the floor of the lake. It will extend about 10 metres out over the water. The work should be complete by November, just ahead of a national sailing titles to be held at the club. Life member and club president Kevin Buxton says the extension will make the most of what the club has to offer.
I was going to say beer and poker machine, but I think it's hospitality and the view of the lake. There's not many clubs you can go to anywhere in Australia, and in fact the world, but you have such a view. You know, you can, wherever you are in the club, you can just look out the windows and see Lake Macquarie, and it's a beautiful sight.
Three people were on the veranda when it suddenly gave way, spilling them onto the ground. Eileen and Joe Ross suffered cuts, abrasions and sprains, but their 86-year-old mother, Vera McKenzie, fell onto a concrete pathway, receiving suspected fractures. Mindful of her advanced years, ambulance officers carefully examined her where she lay before placing her on a stretcher. The stunned victim said the veranda gave way without warning.
The three of us walked out and he said, oh, it only needs a couple of nails in. Next minute we're down on the cement. Veranda and all went with us. That's all that happened.
Mrs Mackenzie was taken to Royal Newcastle Hospital and treated for lacerations. Ironically, it's understood she asked her daughter and son-in-law around to have a look at the balcony, which she suspected was unsafe. Newcastle police say they're picking up significant amounts of freshly cut meat which appears to have been deliberately left out for roaming dogs.
We've got reasonable suspicions that there might be a baiter in the area. We're just waiting from the residents from there if they pick up any more meat, and if it's a bit of a pattern involved, we'll send the meat away to be definitely analysed. We've had the scientific section upstairs have a look at it, but they couldn't analyse it fully as yet.
Police are advising owners to keep control of their pets, and they're asking the public to report anything that looks like a bait. But their biggest concern is to keep the poison away from young children.
We can see that young children might walk on the footpath and see the meat laying there, pick it up and put it in their mouths.
Local vet Ross Beattie says a number of dogs have died recently, but the symptoms may be associated with viruses at large in the hunter. He says dog baiters may be unaware of the suffering they can cause.
Probably the most common things we see animals poisoned with, they may show vomiting and diarrhoea, twitching, trembling and convulsing, and often they'll salivate and froth at the mouth, but certain other poisons will cause them to bleed, and they may bleed either internally or externally, and they certainly have a longer, slower suffering with that.
Contrary to appearances, Ashley Gordon is doing much more than simply riding an exercise bike. The night's winger is sending the metabolic cart machine a sea of information.
In red on the top graph we have the volume of air that is inspired each breath, and you can see it updating each breath. In blue, the line across there is the oxygen concentration in the breaths that he breathes out. In dark blue, we have his oxygen uptake, which is equivalent to his energy utilisation, and it's in mils of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute.
The machine is the best of its kind in the country and will allow coaches to determine just how effective their fitness programs are.
So by monitoring them over a period of time, you can assess and reassess the efficiency or effectiveness of a particular training program.
It also offers the dedicated desk jockey a chance to discover the effects of a hedonistic lifestyle. So it was onto the bike for one Bruce Mackenzie. For 10.5 gruelling minutes, the pedals grew progressively heavier, and it was a calm and relaxed Ashley Gordon who watched this reporter finish a physical wreck. The initial readout looked good for couch potatoes everywhere, indicating I'd actually scored higher than the flash. But further analysis of the statistics revealed the truth. Ashley had thrown a dummy and I'd taken it.
His maximum heart rate today was about 170 beats per minute, whereas yours was over 190. That would indicate that he's probably well off his maximum.
The university has invited the area's elite athletes to enrol for a free assessment as part of a major research project. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
The Hunters have been trialling 31 players this week from Queensland, South Australia and New South Wales. Last night a squad of 10 was announced, 7 of them graduating from the Newcastle Basketball Youth Club. Todd Hadaway is back from Falcons duties, Ian Burns from playing in Melbourne, 2-metre-plus centre from America Tom Harvey is yet to join the squad. A setback for the Hunters before a basket is shot is a lack of major sponsorship. The side was aligned with the Falcons last year, but that relationship has been severed. The South Eastern League starts on the 2nd of April, but the first game is against the New South Wales under-21s at the basketball stadium in 4 weeks. Even at training, Todd Wiltshire only knows 2 speeds, flat out and stop.
When you're racing, you've got, say, 5 riders behind you, you're just going flat out, and you don't want them to pass you. Your adrenaline's running high and you're just trying to get fast as that bike can go around the corners.
The longer 530-metre track at the showground gives the riders a chance to wind up their bikes, topping speeds of 150 kilometres an hour. Wiltshire meets other Aussie internationals Stephen Davies and Craig Boyce and national champion Chris Watson in a run for their share of the $11,000 in prize money. Solo and sidecar action starts with practice at 3 p.m. For Wiltshire, who hails from Toronto, it's his last home run before national meets and then back to the circuit in Europe.
I got the 16th at Adelaide Showgrounds and then the 23rd February Melbourne Showgrounds, and then I'm back to England for 8 months till the first week of November, and trying to further my career and trying to further my world ranking.
Car theft in the Hunter is a big problem. About 800 cars are stolen each year, which represents a bill of more than $4 million to insurance companies and car owners. Car alarms are a recognised method of security, but they have their limitations. Not everyone these days responds to the wail of a siren. Joe Cox has an alternative that's both cheap and innovative.
Thieves are always looking for ways to get around alarms and any security device what comes on the market. I've come up with something to make it hard for thieves to get around.
This small black box contains the secret to the system. Once installed, it means the ignition key alone will not start the car. The driver needs to touch a specially wired and inconspicuous screw, bolt or pinhead in order to complete the circuit and start the engine.
Yes, it has to be metallic, insulated from earth, otherwise the system won't work. So you've got to find a place suitable for the customer and somewhere where people won't find.
While this type of cutout is not uncommon in some alarms, Joe says his design prevents hot wiring where others can't. It can be modified for motorcycles and costs $350 installed.